Okay, here's a question for you. Something that cuts right to the heart of tabletop role-playing games. Can one game, one experience really give you both? That adrenaline hit from great combat and that really deep satisfaction you get from like proper character moments.
Hmm. That's the eternal balancing act, isn't it? It's funny you mentioned that. I was just thinking about this. Ran a D&D game last week, actually, where this exact thing, the combat and role play balance, it went somewhere pretty interesting.
Oh yeah, what happened?
Well, the group was up in this remote mountain pass, right? Investigating some weird stuff happening. Their leads took them to this old monastery, supposed to have ancient secrets, the type. So the first part was all talking to these monks, lots of careful conversation, trying to get information, gain their trust, definitely trying not to start a fight. You could really feel the tension, them trying to read between the lines of what the monks were saying or not saying.
Right, sounds like classic social encounter territory. Could go either way, diplomacy or, well, swords.
Exactly. And then one player, the cleric, usually pretty quiet, actually got absolutely convinced the head monk was hiding something vital. Instead of pushing more with questions, they kind of impulsively tried to sneak in a divination spell right there in front of him.
Oh, wow. Bold move. How'd that go down?
Badly. The monk, way sharper than he seemed, sensed the magic instantly. And just like that, snap. Serene old monk turns hostile. It wasn't like a planned battle map moment. It was just sudden, messy violence breaking out right there in the monastery halls. The other monks jump in defensively, so the whole session just pivoted hard from this tense talk into a scramble for survival.
Huh, that's a perfect example, though. A role-playing choice directly sparking combat. Not just a random encounter dropped in it, flowing right from the character's actions. Shows how linked they are.
Precisely. And, well, that leads us right into what we're diving into today. We're going to explore this whole balance thing, combat and roleplay in D&D. We're looking at an article by Kathy Stone over on LitRPG Reads. It's called 8 Practical Tips for Balancing Combat and Roleplay in Every Dungeons & Dragons Session. So the idea is to pull out some, practical strategies for DMs, how to make sessions really click for everyone at the table, hitting both those narrative highs and those exciting action beats.
Okay, sounds good. So, Stone kicks things off with maybe obviously understanding your players, knowing what they actually like. Seems basic, right? But if you skip that, well, you can end up with a real mismatch between your game and what makes them tick.
Yeah, that's foundational. And Stone mentioned session 0, which is,
Yeah.
the ideal place for that chat.
Mm-hmm.
But maybe go deeper than just combat or roleplay. Ask about, favorite moments from other games, what kind of challenges they enjoy, what character arcs grab them, get the why behind it.
That makes sense. Getting beyond a simple vote. And she also says these preferences aren't static, right? They can change, even mid-campaign. How do you keep up with that?
Well, you got to watch. Stone suggests paying attention during the game. Not just what they say, but body language, too. Who leans in during fights? Who's always starting the character conversations? Even just noticing what gets people talking excitedly after the session tells you a lot about what's hitting home.
Right, staying tuned in. Okay, so building on knowing your players, Stone's next tip is about making sure combat actually means something. It serves the story. Fights shouldn't just feel like random roadblocks.
Exactly. It's not just throwing monsters at them. Stone says, think about the why. How does this fight move the plot forward? Does it force a tough choice? Does it connect to a character's backstory or goals? That adds weight.
Yeah, gives it purpose beyond just kill the goblins. And she mentions adding other goals within combat too, which sounds interesting, makes it more dynamic.
Totally. So maybe it's not just about defeating enemies. Maybe you have to, protect someone or disable a trap or grab something and escape while fighting. That kind of stuff naturally creates chances for quick decisions, maybe even quick bits of role play during the fight. Coordination, shouting clans, that sort of thing.
Okay, then tip 3 is kind of the flip side, using role play to set up the combat. So the fight feels like a natural consequence, not just dropped in out of nowhere.
Precisely. When a fight breaks out because, a negotiation failed spectacularly, or someone felt insulted, or they finally uncovered the bad guy's plan,
Yeah.
the fight just feels more earned, more emotional investment from the players.
And Stone mentions using mystery here too, like building suspicion, revealing clues slowly, so when things do kick off, it feels, I don't know, inevitable, compelling.
Yeah, that slow burn can be really effective.
Yeah.
And it helps blur the lines, right? You don't just stop role-playing and start rolling dice. Players stay more in character because the conflict came from the characters in the situation.
Okay, but what about those really long fights? You know the ones. They can sometimes drag. Stone has a tip for that, number 4. Sprinkle in character moments during the combat.
Yeah, this is a good one. Even mid-battle, find little spots for characters to show who they are. Maybe a quick taunt, or someone expressing worry for a friend who's down, or maybe something in the fight triggers a character's fear or a memory. Little beats.
Like hitting pause for a mini spotlight moment lets players add that personal touch even while they're focused on tactics and dice rolls.
Right. Stone gives examples like maybe an enemy uses a tactic that hits a specific character's phobia, or maybe a defeated enemy tries to surrender, creating a moral choice right there in the heat of things. Turns it from just mechanics into potentially little narrative turning points.
Okay, shifting gears a bit. Tip 5 looks at the time between the action. Downtime, travel. She says use that time.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's easy to just handwave travel, but those moments, the quiet campfire chats, the shared struggles on a long journey, that's where a lot of character bonding happens. You can explore backstories, hinted future plots. It builds the party dynamic and adds depth.
And Stone suggests maybe tossing in little prompts during downtime, like hearing a weird rumor in town or a strange encounter on the road. Small things to spark interaction.
Yeah, and it doesn't have to be massively pre-planned by the DM either. Just creating the space for players to initiate roleplay or having a couple of small, interesting things ready to go can do a lot.
All right, tip 6 gets into pacing. Using encounter design to manage the rhythm of the session. The DM as conductor, sort of.
Exactly. Stone talks about varying things up. Don't make every encounter a huge hour-long battle, mixing quick ambushes for excitement, maybe save the complex multi-stage fights for big story moments, and throw in non-combat stuff too, like puzzles or traps. Keeps things fresh.
She even gives some rough time estimates for different encounter types, which is kind of helpful. A reminder that not every challenge needs to be an epic slog.
Yeah. And the bottom line here is being flexible. Read the room. If the players seem restless, maybe it's time for some action. If they're super into a role-playing scene, let it breathe. Don't cut it short just because you had a fight plan next.
Makes sense. Then, tip 7 is about rewarding role-playing, giving actual in-game benefits for it.
Right. Stone makes the case that this encourages players to really lean into their characters. Not like fake acting to get a bonus, but acknowledging when players make strong character choices or really engage with the narrative, making that feel significant mechanically too.
So things like inspiration for a great speech, maybe, or making a check easier if a character used their background knowledge cleverly in roleplay.
Stuff like that. It shows that those narrative choices have impact. But, as Stone notes, you need balance. Too many rewards can break the game's math, but zero recognition can make role-playing feel like it's just flavor text with no real effect.
Finding that sweet spot. Okay, final tip number 8. Stone suggests DMs think about planning session beats instead of just a strict sequence of events.
Yeah, this is about the overall flow, the emotional arc of the session. Think about starting strong with a hook, building tension, having moments of release, maybe some quieter reflection, maybe even some humor. Planning these key beats gives you a structure, but one that's flexible enough to handle unexpected player choices. You create a journey.
So it's less about hitting plot points A, B, and C in order, and more about crafting an experience with highs and lows. Allows more freedom to follow the players.
Exactly. And wrapping it all up, Stone really stresses that finding this balance is, it's an ongoing thing. Every group's different. There's no magic formula. But the best games often find that natural rhythm where action and interaction feed each other, making the whole story richer.
So yeah, the main takeaway seems to be combat and roleplay aren't enemies fighting for session time. They're partners. They work together to make the game engaging, to build investment.
Totally. Know your players, weave story into fights, let roleplay lead to fights, find character moments in fights, use downtime, pace things well, reward engagement. It all connects.
Definitely gives you stuff to think about for your own games, doesn't it? Looking back at sessions you've run or played in, seeing how that balance worked, or maybe didn't.
It really does. And speaking of great resources, we absolutely have to give a shout out to LitRPG Reads and, of course, the fine fellow Paul Bello for Kathy Stone's article. Really good stuff.
Absolutely. Great article. And hey, to everyone listening, we'd love to know what you think. What are your experiences balancing combat and roleplay in D&D? Any tips or memorable moments? Let us know down in the comments.